Welcome to CMMS Radio, a podcast and general resource for all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, from selection to implementation to help you make better choices and have a successful CMMS journey. We'll bring in experts along the way to help us learn more about CMMS, facilities operations, and much more. If you need help with the CMMS project, send a message at CMMSradio.com using the What's on Your Mind link. Suggest a topic, share your CMMS story, or ask questions. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Today we have a returning guest. It's been a while. Been trying to get him back on for a while. It's James Kovacevic, and he's got a lot of certifications. He's well known throughout the world of maintenance and reliability. He's helping organizations improve the triple bottom line through improved asset management practices. He's the Director of Engineering at Hiram Walker & Sons Limited, and he's here to help us learn about predictive maintenance. James, welcome to CMMS Radio again.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back. Like you said, it has been a while, and it's been a lot of work to make this happen, but we're here, and I'm excited.
Well, the good news about that is it means you're busy, you're doing lots of good stuff, and people that know you know what that really means. And there'll be some stuff in the episode so people can kind of research all that. But one of the things I really wanted to get into was prescriptive. He ruined it. Prescriptive maintenance. And I want to just have you remind us what that really is, but I also want to have you remind everyone, what is the triple bottom line?
All right. So we got a couple different things to talk about then. So prescriptive maintenance is it's a tool. It's coming. I don't know very many people using it right now. So we're going to talk a little bit about prescriptive maintenance, what it is, how it helps, all those organizations make better, more informed decisions. Now, circling back to the triple bottom line, it's really around the economic, the environmental, and the social benefits that organizations bring.
So when we look at the triple bottom line, it's really trying to take all things, not just within the organization, but everything that surrounds the organization, like the community, and connecting it for a meaningful journey forward. Is that a good flowery way to put it?
Yeah, exactly. How does the organization benefit, not just economically, but benefit the environment, benefit the community, their customers, the larger community or globe, if you will, even.
Yeah. And it's a big thing for a long time now, but let's switch back over then to prescriptive maintenance. And I think what I meant earlier was when I mentioned predictive, I want to differentiate predictive from prescriptive, because I think a lot of people need to get a good differentiation there.
Yep. So if we take a step back, then we talk about predictive maintenance first. So what is predictive maintenance? Well, it's utilizing a variety of tools. They could be our five senses. It could be technology, vibration, ultrasound, thermography, oil analysis to determine how an asset or the condition of that asset at a particular point in time. And if we start to see a change in some of those trends, roughly, if we have good data, we can predict how long it's going to last before it's a complete failure. And having that data, we can make informed decisions of continue to run it for a little bit, or do we have to shut down and make that repair immediately? But it gives us the opportunity to do planned maintenance instead of reacting to just a breakdown. Now, prescriptive maintenance is really taking that one step further. It's taking all the different parameters, kind of like a doctor would. You have something wrong. He's going to ask you a bunch of questions. When did this start? He's going to check your blood work. He's going to check some other vitals. And based on his expert knowledge, he's going to make a prediction that it is this. And he's going to prescribe the action you need to take to mitigate that illness, recover, whatever it may be. Prescriptive maintenance is the same thing. It's taking data from numerous sources. It could be that predictive maintenance data. It could be production data. It could be other operating data that we have, such as runtime, loads, currents, voltages, all those different things. And it's going to make a prediction that this is in good condition, continue as you are. We're seeing a change here. You need to take an oil sample more frequently than what we would normally recommend. And it's going to also predict or prescribe those activities, which might be replace, and you're going to have a 95% chance of avoiding failure if you replace within so many weeks, months, whatever it may be. Or it might suggest you need to test more frequently because the data and the model's not there. But it's really relying on expert systems, AI heavily, as well as a lot of different data sources to prescribe what actions that maintenance team should be taking. The other thing it can do is it can really help to make prescriptions on should you replace a certain component. It might suggest that you upgrade this bearing to a different type of bearing, and you'll have a success rate of, say, 80% of increasing its life of that asset. It'll provide those opportunities as well.
So, and I think it's obvious. I mean, we're on CMMSradio that the CMMS is going to be a part of that, but it's only one aspect of that. So these are all tools, but prescriptive maintenance in and of itself would then be an added methodology for creating more reliability, in other words, availability. Where does the information on how we prescribe come from? Is it purely the body of knowledge that we've gotten from, let's say, a combination of sensor inputs, maintenance activities that found, say, root cause failures of something? Is it all of that combined plus somebody still needs to be involved, or is this something that moves us towards automation?
The few models that I've seen successful in this, at least from an initial standpoint, an initial review, they have a lot of learning models, and they're linking failure modes to different indicators, but that's fairly generic. It's going to have to get a lot more refined, and there's going to be a learning period when you deploy prescriptive maintenance in a package like that to your organization so it better understands the equipment and the operating context of it.
So it really comes back to a combination of, say, for example, and I don't know if I'm right here, I'm just asking the question to an expert. AI, proper AI that has been set up, managed, and is constantly managed to actually know what it's supposed to know, along with things like machine learning and that kind of constant throughput of data that then becomes meaningful because something and someone is kind of scrubbing it along the way so that it becomes better. Is that fair?
Yes, I think that's very fair. And the two applications where I have seen and read about success doesn't come down to industrial maintenance in a lot of cases right now. And we might be getting there, but I've seen it heavily discussed and talked about in fleet management. If you're a mine and you got 50 of these same dump trucks, it's taking all that data from all those different dump trucks, aggregating it up, and we got a good learning model there. It's being deployed that way. And I've also seen stuff on aviation because they have similar operating context, very, very specific applications. It's using many assets of the same type, so it gets really good data. The challenge, I think, at least right now, if you're in general manufacturing or something of that nature, a lot of the equipment we have is kind of custom, kind of one-off. We don't have manufacturers aggregating the data from all the different assets they have deployed around the globe to build these good learning models.
Is it fair to also add to that even if we get the manufacturing data, so it's not cookie cutter per se, it's going to have a lot of specificity for industry, we'll use that in quotes, where it's applicable now because there's enough data available that they've created these models that are actually impactful and effective. But then what we want to do is be careful with I'm saying we got to be careful with manufacturers' data and recommendations because all of that changes once you get into the real-time environment. Is that a fair statement?
I think if it's not in a fleet application, yes, 100%. But because most of the applications I've seen for this, it might be Caterpillar, for example, they're taking all that data off those assets real time and sending it via satellite or other communications to a central hub to analyze that data across all their assets across the globe. So we don't have that opportunity in manufacturing.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
And that would be an extremely long game. And I think the reason I wanted to ask the question I asked is we see a lot of trends now with the latest and greatest. Ooh, shiny thing. Ooh, easy button, magic silver bullet. And lots of organizations end up with these technologies and these more advanced techniques. Say they're on a maintenance maturity journey, if you will, and they're grabbing things that are for maybe level 3, 4, and 5, but they're still at level 1. And I just caution people on this idea behind prescriptive maintenance. Yes, it's a thing. Yes, it might be effective for you, but it sounds to me like you have to be mindful whether that's even applicable for what you're doing right now. Is that a fair statement?
I would definitely say so. There's a couple reasons why. To your point, when organizations are at a level 2 and they're trying to do level 5 things, they don't have those data foundations. They're probably not collecting the right breakdown data. They're not
Mhm,
collecting the cause codes or the failure modes for each failure. They're not capturing that stuff in a meaningful way that's usable data.
mhm.
So it's kind of hard to go to prescriptive when you don't have that base level of data in place. Your assets might not be broken down or classified correctly in your CMMS. So then it causes a lot of issues when you're trying to look at that data. The other thing I think, depending on the organization, you got to consider is regulations. Technology is moving at a very fast pace that allows us to do some of this prescriptive maintenance, but there's a lot of regulations out there that industries are governed by that it will not accept the recommendations from prescriptive maintenance. They have
Mm.
guidelines, they have standards, and thou shall follow those. So we have, you know, this lag from some of the regulatory bodies that we could potentially benefit from, but we can't because we're still using standards and specifications that may or may not be applicable anymore.
It's interesting because early on you were using the healthcare and medical environment as an example of prescriptive maintenance, and now we're right back there where in those environments when things are being put to the test, being developed, you go from one trial to maybe human trials and all that. It reminds me a lot of that. So it's kind of a word of caution, but something to keep an eye on for everybody, because I think somebody's eventually going to figure out how to adapt this to other industries, but I also think they're going to do it prematurely. And it's a thing about selling, and I'm all for those types of things. I understand we have to sell the solutions that we have, but at the same time, I'm far more a proponent of focusing in on solutionizing, focusing on the problem and all that stuff first, which is kind of a slower, almost like a long game for the clientele that you work with. And I feel the same way about these kinds of advanced technologies where you can't rush into it just because it looks like and seems like. You have to really put it to the test. Like you're saying in Fleet, it's very well founded, but other places there's a lot of work to be done. What then if we switch this back into a little bit of a CMMS discussion, when we're looking at advanced technology, so I'm going to take it back to like sensors, condition monitoring, uh, condition based maintenance, do you have any advice for just everyone in general when they're utilizing CMMS platforms? They've got some adoption where they should kind of be more cautious when they're leveling up into sensors or AI or any of those technologies.
Yeah, I think to your point, you have to be very specific on what you're trying to achieve. So the first step is what's your objective? Is it to improve reliability? Is it to improve quality throughput on your production lines? There's very different things that you may be focusing on. Or is it to reduce cost? Once you understand that, then you can figure out what is the best path forward. Not everyone needs a 99% reliability. It's very, very expensive. You might be very good with 60, 70% reliability, and that's what your business needs to survive because
How
there's a trade off. Reliability is expensive, it's very expensive. So as you get further up that curve, you're going to spend a lot more money, and is the return on investment there? Likely not for most organizations.
I'm curious about that in how do we figure out, is there a common denominator that tells us don't go down that path because it wouldn't make sense for you? How do we figure that out? Is it based on, I know it's a myriad of factors, right? But is there any way to kind of generalize? I know we hate to do that, but generalize at what level should you not be looking at this highly performing reliability program for
I
your
think
business?
it comes down to the business case. So let's take a generic manufacturing company that uses OEE, or overall equipment effectiveness, to measure performance. Now, for those that aren't familiar, what are the three things you need for OEE? Availability, performance rate, quality. What does reliability really impact? Well, it can impact quality, it can impact performance rate, it can impact availability, but generally it's going to impact availability more. So you can kind of work backwards on that using OEE. If the organization's goal is 70% OEE and we have a 95% quality rate and our performance rate is 95%, we can figure out what we need for availability. Once we have that, then we can work backwards and see what do we need to improve to achieve that specified level of availability. And if there's particular bad actors on site that is preventing us from hitting that performance level on OEE, then we can do the deep analysis on those particular assets, like RCM, like some really good root cause analysis to figure out what do we need to do to fix this. And then that's where we deploy these technologies to improve that reliability on those specific assets. We don't want to just blanket do everything. It's expensive, and
Yeah.
we're probably not going to get the benefits that we want from it.
So now another question born of that is, it seems to me from what I've seen where I sit, people I've worked with and talked to, and I learn from experts like you all the time, there's a lot of commonality of organizations being moved down that path when they shouldn't be, maybe because somebody was focused more on selling something.
There's a potential there. If you're an organization looking to deploy some of these technologies, IoT sensors, all those different things, I would take a step back and look, can you actually manage your workload to begin with? Are you closing work orders on time? Do you have high schedule compliance? Are you able to do those things? If not, then all you're going to get is sensors that tell you something's failed. You didn't react to it, and then it fails anyways.
So we're all the way back to this concept or idea of maintenance maturity, which generally speaking is how we go through these levels. We don't have anything in place. Now we've got something, and now we go to the next level where we've got high user adoption, and it goes on and on like this. And so many organizations worldwide are confused about this, and then they're afraid to kind of slow down because somebody's putting pressure from one side of the business on that part of the business. I wanted to ask you kind of a slightly different question, not about CMMS, but maintenance in general. Do you have any strategies or advice you would give someone for creating the conversation that connects the business as a whole to those maintenance activities so that they can get on that path starting at the beginning, but then get the buy-in from the company to solve these issues?
Yeah, it's really the business of maintenance. So we're looking at what is our maintenance cost per widget or per ton produced or OEE. And then we can use those higher level metrics that finance people want to talk about and break those down. So for example, if our maintenance cost is high per ton, then we just start doing a basic root cause analysis. Why is that? Are we high levels of break-ins? Yes. Okay. Why are we having a high level of break-ins? Or if we don't have a high level of break-ins, but our maintenance cost is high, why is that? Maybe we've implemented way too many systems and we're too reliable for what we're trying to do as an organization. We're spending a lot of money to maintain that level of reliability when it's not warranted.
That's another one. Now that sounds like a really complicated kind of subject, how we figure that out, because every industry and every business within it, the organizations, they all have their uniqueness. This is why when we come back to any of these solutions, any of these reliability programs, if we don't do these comprehensive assessments and involve all the right people, all the stakeholders, which takes time, it's very disruptive, but then we know if we should be doing this. How do you find out if you're doing that and it's unnecessary? Is that hard to do?
I've seen that a lot less than I've seen people not doing enough. So it's
Okay.
rare that I would see that, but it is possible. And some organizations I have worked with in the past have gotten to that point where they have everything is redundant. They have extra people on staff. They have a lot of extra things going on, and they're over analyzing, overdoing maintenance, carry way too many spare parts, and the cost to the organization is huge. So if we have a full redundant plant, we're depreciating twice of what we really need. That's a
Mm,
huge expense to an organization.
yeah. It's it's the opposite of efficiency too.
Yeah.
I
And
wonder who in the organization as a whole is typically the first person to recognize something like that.
it would probably be finance because they see very high costs
Mhm.
from a maintenance perspective, but they're not getting the value out of it. They may have gotten good returns till they got about 75, 80% of the way there, and then it's diminishing returns after that.
Interesting how you mentioned that and what we were talking about earlier when it comes to this overall assessment, who's benefiting from what. And I've always asked questions like, does it seem like finance and leadership oftentimes speaks a slightly different language or maybe very different language than maintenance and operations? And that's where we get a lot of these kind of misalignments when there just wasn't enough representation on these projects. And then of course we can throw in the middle just this big old wrench that somebody that was a critical component of said project right in the middle of change leaves.
Yep.
Now we keep on going because we don't have time to stop and figure out what's going on. That idea behind communication and language and how you build a case for support on changing something that's not working or bringing something in that you know you're now ready for. Have you wrestled with that a lot throughout your career?
Yeah, well, let's face it, most maintenance guys like tools, they like the shiny things. And what are most of these sensors and most of these technology things people are deploying? They're a new fancy tool. But if we don't have those basics down, they're not going to help us. So it's a huge undertaking to get people to slow down to speed up. If we slow down, we get the basics right. We're planning on scheduling, we manage our spares, we got a decent asset hierarchy and criticality, and we're doing some PM optimization. We focus on those things first. Then we'll create time and we'll create the ability to utilize those new tools. But if we don't do that, we'll likely take on more than we can do. So, for example, a couple of organizations I've worked with, they've looked to implement predictive maintenance. Now, one organization out on the West Coast, they did it well. They picked one technology, they picked ultrasound, they deployed it really well, they captured all their savings, they showed the benefits, and by that, they're able to bring on someone else to help with all the predictive maintenance. Then they deployed a second technology. Other organizations go out, they buy ultrasound, vibe, thermography, and they try and do all of them at once.
Mm.
Not enough time, not enough people, and we haven't showed the return on investment of buying that stuff and doing that training. So guess what's one of the first things to be cut? Predictive maintenance, because there's no benefit to it. The organization hasn't realized a return on it yet.
Wow. And they might have even been getting a little bit closer and they didn't have visibility to that fact
Yep.
or that observation. It's really this is so one of the things that I'm always interested in is trying to understand what the customer is experiencing out there in this world and the world of maintenance and reliability, all the different things. I like facilities management, facilities maintenance, all of it. I like it. And I don't go so deep as what the subject matter experts I bring on the show can understand and articulate, but I think people are really confused out there, and that's one of the reasons I like talking about this because it's going to help somebody understand, oh, hey, wait, we might have that situation. Let me go look at that. And that way it kind of helps them figure out where they should be looking. Do you actively consult for all these different things we've been talking about?
Not anymore. I used to do a lot of consulting.
Yeah.
But about 2.5 years ago, took a job where I could stay home with my wife and kids. So I didn't have to be on an airplane every week. So, um, I am happy to help people where I can or point them in the right direction if I can't, or if it's too big for anything I'm doing.
Yeah.
But if people have questions, I'm always happy to answer on LinkedIn. I get still many, many messages a week asking for this or that and happy to help.
Cool. I like that. Now, Now I want to go through what I call the fun segment or the fun questions. And I've been doing this lately just because I think it's interesting to get to know somebody and their perspectives on a couple of things. So, first one I'd like to ask you is, what is your favorite music?
Uh, it depend upon the day and
Hmm.
what I'm doing. If I'm working out, it's more hard rock. If I'm
What
trying
about,
to
yeah, go ahead.
if I'm trying to focus, then I have like little Zen music. So it varies all every day.
All right. Very good. Very good. Next question is, what is your favorite sport or hobby? And if it's a sport, it does not have to be one that you perform. It could be one that you like to watch and kind of stay up on, how it's going.
All right. So when I stopped traveling about 2.5 years ago, I started doing triathlons. So I
Ah,
am doing triathlons now, and I'd have to say that's my favorite right now.
very good. Very good. And I just read about somebody today that completed a 50-mile marathon,
That's nuts.
and it was on his second attempt. Brilliant, brilliant little story. So it's really interesting that you mentioned that because it reminds me of that. Now, this last question, there are no right or wrong answers on this. This is all you. Don't even, just let it roll. What is your perspective and or philosophy on work-life balance?
There's seasons. So I think I say that because there are times where you have to button down, put a little bit more work and effort at work, and there's other times where you scale that back and you put more effort into home, family, those sorts of things. I don't think it's consistent. I think it changes due to a variety of different factors, and I think you need to you need to keep that open mind about work life balance and have that flexibility, or you won't be happy. Do I think I would enjoy working, call it 37 and a half hours every week? Probably. Is that realistic? No. But I think there's got to be some give and takes there. And if you're willing to accept those give and takes and work with it, then I think you can actually achieve work life balance.
All right. So maybe the general takeaway there is be aware and have an open mind that you need to maybe slow down a minute, and then when you get those other opportunities to speed up a bit on the work part and kind of figure it out. There's maybe no ultimate strategy, but we have to be open to monitoring it.
Yep. I think you have to be flexible, monitor, and adjust based on what's happening at work and what's happening at home.
All right. Very good. Very good. Well, today we're going to keep our episode pretty short because I want to do this again because there was a lot in the episode that I want to kind of unpack and think about because I'm probably going to have like 30 follow up questions. And I want to thank you for coming back on CMMS Radio. And for anybody that wants to get in touch with James, you can find him on LinkedIn. And in the episode for the visuals, I'll put the information up so you can find him. But he's there on LinkedIn. It's James, and I'm going to spell the last name Kovacevic.
Yep, absolutely. And if I may, I actually wrote a blog post on prescriptive maintenance years ago. It might have been 2019, 2020, somewhere in that ballpark. It is still online, so people can find that if you want, and I'll send you the link so you can add it easily.
That'll work. I'll put it in there for everyone so they can go get their own primer and start thinking about these things. Again, thank you so much for joining me today, James.
Thanks. It's a pleasure.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS from selection to implementation to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.